This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1, and today I'm going to discuss task force wars, among other subjects. Now, over the past several years, there seems to be a proliferation of task forces. The ones that we have been discussing are the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force and the Children's Crusade, which is a task force of sorts. There are other task forces out there. Some run by the government, some run by individuals. The two that I just mentioned are run by individuals and groups. And their legitimacy has been questioned. Now, there is another task force out there. It's not a new task force. This task force has been around for quite a long time, at least a decade. When I produce this video and get the graphics up, I'll have a summary of exactly what this particular task force is, how long it's been in existence, and the purpose of it. It'll go along with my narration here. It's a task force that the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force and the Children's Crusade, plus all those actively involved in one form or another with these task forces, should be worried about. And this task force is known as the National Cyber Investigative Task Force. It is run by the United States Department of Justice. This is a real task force. This isn't something started by a blogger. This isn't something where someone is third in line to the President of the United States. This is a legitimate agency of the United States government. It is one you can check. Now, this investigative task force was set up specifically to be a clearinghouse for any criminal or terroristic act having to do with computers or internet-based criminal acts, terrorism, what have you. And it acts as a clearinghouse for leads it gets through various agencies, such as the various local law enforcement agencies, the Department of the Federal Trade Commission, the Department of Treasury, the Internal Revenue Service, all the alphabet soups of government agencies and bodies that exist out there for various reasons. The National Investigative Task Force consolidates all these various leads and determines who best to investigate them. Their main arm of investigation is the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Secret Service, the United States Marshal Service, and a number of other investigative agencies, both federal, state, and local, depending on what the main subject of the investigation is. The investigative task force will determine that. And as it turns out, the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force and the Children's Crusade has come to the attention of the National Cyber Investigative Task Force. The investigation has started through this agency. And those who are involved with the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force and the Children's Crusade have a lot to worry about. This is not going to be just some random FBI agent or group of FBI agents knocking on your door. It's not going to be a Secret Service agent showing up with a golden badge. It's going to be a lot of sealed indictments going to judges, asking for sealed permissions to do surveillance, all sorts of mean little things. And so, those of you who aren't there saying that you're third in line to the President of the United States, or say that you represent the President of the United States, or state that the President of the United States is subject to assassination or takeover by the Vice President of the United States, or that the Vice President of the United States is trying to kill you, are going to be watched, and are being watched very closely. When I found out that this agency was involved, which was quite recently, with these two groups, allegedly, I was on the understanding that these investigations have been going on for some time. Because when the activities of this particular agency start being leaked, it's usually after the investigations have been going on for a while. Now, the catalyst for all this is people have been reporting the activities of these two primary so-called task forces to agencies of the federal government. They've reported them to the Federal Trade Commission. They've reported them to the FBI in various branches throughout the country. And when these complaints came in, the local agency reviewed these, put them into a database, and the National Cyber Investigative Task Force started receiving these complaints. They get them automatically. They get them from every agency in the federal government that has at its disposal a mechanism to receive these kind of complaints. And the same goes for state governments. If you report E-Clause for falsely representing themselves as a legal service, as being lawyers representing individuals in cases and stuff like that, this goes to the state bar associations, but a copy of the complaint also goes to the National Cyber Investigative Task Force. And the reason for that is because you are dealing with interstate commerce over the internet. This falls under wire fraud, and this is one of the things that these people investigate. It's considered a white-collar crime. Now, a number of these people are also part of the sovereign citizen movement. And sovereign citizens have been determined to be a terrorist group by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. As a result of that, the National Cyber Investigative Task Force monitors the activity of sovereign citizens throughout the country. And if the activities of certain sovereign citizen rises to a level where it deserves this agency's attention, they get put on a list. And when you've got someone spending $30,000 plus to help a fugitive from justice remain that way, even though it's a misdemeanor, this catches the attention of federal authorities. And in this case, it also brings up the attention to the National Cyber Investigative Task Force, who coordinates all this information and distributes it to whatever agency is best able to handle the individual situations. So the folks at the center of these accusations don't know what direction they're going to get hit from. They could get hit from the FBI. They could get hit from a local state bar association. They could get hit from the Federal Trade Commission, or any combination of all these agencies, or all of them. Because it boils down to who has jurisdiction over all these investigations. And there may be multiple jurisdictions involved. There may be interagency cooperation where one state cooperates with another, or a state cooperates with a federal agency. So it's going to be kind of an alphabet soup of agencies that are involved here. This is turning into an unusually large investigation for such a small, insignificant group, who may not be that insignificant, excuse my pronunciation, with the federal government. Because there's a lot of this stuff going on, and there's a lot of these investigations going on. And what this task force does is to unclutter the mess and compartmentalize it. It's kind of it's an expediting service. It determines the best course of action, the best agency or collection of agencies to perform these investigations, and it starts consulting with everybody. And it is at that stage that judges are contacted, requests for wiretaps, surveillance, requests for information from various social media providers such as YouTube, Facebook, Patreon, and so forth, and Vimeo, or Vimeo, however you pronounce it. So all these companies will have been contacted through sealed summonses to release information regarding people using their service, and to notify them that they are to allow any number of federal agencies to conduct covert surveillance of members of their service. This is a condition under which they operate. So all these people out there that are making all these grandiose claims, are stating that they're here for a given purpose, you're under investigation. And you're under a very deep, thorough, and covert investigation. Now, I don't care if you believe me or not. I mean, you can Google this agency. It's out there. It's in a real interesting location that's not really talked about all that much. You hardly ever hear about this agency in the news. They operate quietly. They don't draw attention to themselves. But they're a force to be reckoned with, as you will soon find out. It's too late to clean up your act. I mean, if you check them out and say, Jesus Christ, this thing actually exists, and you start deleting things and start closing things down and so on and so forth, it's too late. They've got their information. You're screwed no matter what you do from this day forward. That's one of the reasons that I'm releasing this information now. I have known about the activities of this agency for a while now. I've given hints that this agency is out there. I have told you people time and again that there is somebody watching you, that you're under investigation, that information is being collected, that little cars with government license plates are snooping around, and you've ignored this advisory, this warning, which I hoped you would. Because now, it's too late. You're dead. But I do offer this warning for those on the fringes, those that are on the outside that think they want to get in on the action. You best not get involved. Before you get involved with the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force or the Children's Crusade in any way, shape, or form, you need to look up this agency on the internet. Google them. And just so you know what it is the National Cyber Interactive Task Force. Type that in. You're going to get the symbol that you see above this narrative. You're going to see what I put in here about this agency and what they do. And then keep in mind that they operate covertly. They don't put out press releases. They don't say, well, we're investigating Joe Blow because he's got a blog and he's taking in money from the blog. That's not how they operate. They operate in the dark. They operate in secret. They're like a domestic CIA service. They have the power to investigate domestic crimes the same way the CIA investigates espionage and international crimes. And they coordinate with these groups because there are international players here. There are people from Canada that are part of this investigation. There are people from the United Kingdom that are part of this investigation, and parts of Europe that are in parts of this investigation. So the task force will coordinate with foreign countries. So understand that if you decide that you want to get involved with the Children's Crusade or the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, because the deeper you get in with these groups, the more trouble you're going to get into. Because they go from the bottom up. They start looking at the people at the bottom because they want to get to the people at the top. They don't go from the top down, they go from the bottom up. This is typical of any federal investigation. It's a pattern that they've used for decades. The FBI started the process. They came up with the plan, they came up with the method. And all these investigative agencies use the same basic format when investigating. They start from the bottom up. And they're going to start picking people off one at a time. Right now, Field McConnell is in jail. He's going through the extradition process. Sometime in late February, early March, Mr. McConnell is going to be going to Florida. Nobody is going to stop it. You know, if anybody thinks that a guy proclaiming himself to be the federal Postmaster General of the world, of whatever, is going to march into a sheriff's office with a piece of paper and say, let this man out, it is not going to happen. Some county councilman is not going to go and come up with some way to get Field McConnell out of prison. This is an issue between the state of Florida and the state of Wisconsin, and whatever Field McConnell is able to argue in court. And at this point, it's 95% certain that Field McConnell is going to Florida. Now, right now, as I make this video, Field McConnell is in jail. Field McConnell is not going to get out of jail. There's a 50-50 chance that Field McConnell may go on his little radio or his little YouTube channel, say a little prayer, and come up with more nonsense to assure his audience that he's getting out of jail, but he's not. It's not going to happen. Because Field McConnell is not using a qualified lawyer to advocate his position. He is using screwballs, non-qualified people, paralegals at best, to conduct his legal affairs. And now Field McConnell is relying on this clown who says he's the Postmaster General of the world or whatever to get him out of his mess. That's not going to happen. Phil McConnell is not properly handling his financial affairs. Now, this is a gray area, because not only is Phil McConnell involved, but so is his wife. There's a chance that maybe somebody will come to their senses and pay the back taxes on that house so that he can keep it. That's the only way he's going to be able to keep the house, is to get all his taxes caught up. And not just his property taxes. He also has to get his federal income tax caught up, because they have a lien on all that property. And they don't like tax protesters. They don't like sovereign citizens. They like to teach sovereign citizens a lesson. And one of the ways they like to teach sovereign citizens a lesson is to have tax auctions. And right now, Phil McConnell is bordering on being charged with income tax evasion, which is a deliberate failure to pay income tax. There are circumstances under which, if you cannot pay your income tax due to a loss, the IRS will work with you. You can pay by installments. There's other arrangements that can be made. There's different circumstances. If you legitimately go to the IRS and say, look, this is the situation, the IRS will evaluate it on a case-by-case basis. They will make a decision as to how they're going to handle you. But if you actively proclaim that you are not going to pay your federal income tax because the IRS is a corporation or some other nonsense, they'll come after your ass. And the IRS is not a blogger. The IRS is not a YouTuber. The IRS is an agency of the United States government, and they have a tremendous amount of power. And they will put the hammer down you if they feel like it. You don't want to mess with them. And this is what Phil McConnell's going to find out the hard way if he doesn't straighten up his act. You know, he's going to have to give up on this sovereign citizen crap and grow up. Sovereign citizen is a fantasy. It's an excuse by people to break the rules. It's an excuse by people not to live up to their responsibility as a citizen of the United States. Now, if these people want to renounce the citizenship of the United States, then they're going to renounce their ability to vote. They're going to want to renounce their ability to participate in a lot of things in this country. But they're also going to get in trouble, because even if they renounce their citizenship of the United States and all this other BS that they come up with, they are on United States soil. And they have to abide by the laws of the United States, whether they like it or not. If they don't like our laws, they can pack up and go somewhere else. Follow their laws. The only way to change a system is to work within the system. So if you don't like the way the United States governs itself, you go out and you elect people that will do what you want to do. And hope that those people are powerful enough to do what you want to do, to change all these rules within the framework that was set up by the people that founded this country. But to go around and throw out these weird legal terms and theories and so on and so forth is going to get you nowhere but jail if you act upon what it is that you advocate. Because the system is what the system is, and you're not going to be able to change it unless you attempt to do so by force. And if you try to change it by force, then you're going to live with the consequences of your actions. So you better have enough force to do what it is you want to do. And you are not going to get change done or get anything accomplished by pretending to be something you are not. Now, I don't care how many times Timothy Charles Holmes says, stomps up and down, uses foul language, screams his head off to state that the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force exists. It does not exist. There is no Pentagon Pedophile Task Force with Timothy Charles Homseth as a spokesman. The Pentagon doesn't operate that way. The Pentagon doesn't get involved in these kind of things. Pentagon is a military branch of the federal government. If there's any kind of task force of this nature, it's in the civilian part of the United States government. And it would generally fall under the Justice Department or as a subcommittee of Congress. And no task force exists in the manner that Timothy Charles Homseth claims. It's a fantasy. It's a fraud. And anybody that believes in the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force is an idiot, is ignorant, and is a fool. You don't know how this country operates. You don't know how agencies are formed, how they operate, who they report to, and what rules they must follow. And the same goes for Mr. Pendergrass. Mr. Pendergrass does not have any affiliation with the United States government. All Pendergrass does is he has a Facebook channel, and he goes on about garbage. Everything he says is garbage. Everything he activates is garbage. He doesn't have a clue as to what he's talking about. He misinterprets what he's reading. And he misleads people. But people choose to believe him. And, in a lot of cases, there's not much you can do about that. People are going to believe in what they believe. But this is for those people out there that might consider getting involved. Because they don't like me. They don't like Hillary. They don't like the Democrats. Maybe they don't like some of the Republicans out there. But that's not a reason to join this kind of an advocacy group. Because they're not sincere. Put politics aside. I don't care what you are. If you're Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, or whatever part of the political spectrum you're on, start using your damn common sense, for crying out loud. Think for once. Don't let your biases judge what you see. Use your common sense. Ask yourself how an unemployed pizza delivery driver hiding away in some unknown location, either his daughter's house, the basement of Phil McConnell's house, hotel room somewhere, doesn't matter where he is, he's hiding. He's got a warrant out for his arrest. If he goes into the state of Minnesota and he has the unlucky position of being pulled over by a cop or questioned by a cop, they're going to find he's got a bench warrant and they're going to arrest his ass. That's why he's staying out of the state of Minnesota. Because he knows the second he crosses the state line, he risks getting caught and arrested and put in jail. And Donald Trump is not going to get him out of his mess. Donald Trump hasn't done crap so far. And so anybody that thinks that Donald J. Trump is going to get Timothy Charles Homseth out of his little mess, they're kidding themselves. Just like they're kidding themselves that Donald J. Trump is going to get Phil McConnell out of his mess. Phil McConnell and President Trump have never met each other. If you mention the name Phil McConnell to President Trump, he's going to think you're talking about the leader of the Senate of the United States, Senator McConnell. There's no relation. Just happen to have the same last name. It's a common Irish name. So Phil McConnell is a nobody. He's a former pilot for an airline who went nuts. Sued the unions, sued the airline, sued the manufacturer of the aircraft over this 911 nonsense. Wasted a lot of time and people's money on garbage. And he has nothing to show for it. So he goes out and he creates this financial empire, and then with all this money come rolling in, he can't even pay his damn taxes. goes out and spends all that money on antique cars, a beautiful house, lives high off the hog, off the money donated to him from working class people. People on Social Security, people blue collar, working in machine shops, stores, what have you, maybe even housewives. You know, ordinary people doing ordinary things, thinking that they're part of something extraordinary when they're actually part of nothing. It's a stage play, it's an act, it's a performance, it's a comedy of errors. And the problem with this comedy of errors is they're doing a lot of damage. They're ruining people's lives. They're making death threats. They're making all kinds of false accusations. They're calling people disgusting names. Talking about sexually graphic things about women. Weird stuff. And yet people hold on to this belief that they're actually out trying to do something. Now I ask a common question here. How many children have been saved? How many crimes have been prevented by calling a complete stranger, a professional woman from the state of Florida, Miss Piggy? I mean, what does that accomplish? What does putting on a pair of pink pants and dancing around in a studio accomplish? Nothing. No kids are being saved. No veterans are being put on a ranch. None of this is being done. All that's being done is people are funneling money to these people and getting nothing in return except entertainment. Now, if that's what people want, if they want to be entertained, and they truly understand that these people are doing nothing to save children and help veterans, they're just helping themselves line their pockets, then fine. Send them your money. But just bear in mind, that's all you're doing, is you're paying for entertainment. You're not paying to get kids rescued from traffickers, from abusers, from kidnappers. You're not bringing the criminals to justice. You're reporting on others doing it. If somebody gets arrested, it's not the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force doing it. It is the arresting agency, be they local, state, or federal. Bill McConnell's not going out conducting investigations or getting people arrested. Law enforcement's doing that. And they're not doing it because of him. They're doing it because these investigations have been going on. And when they get reported to the public, it's because this has been done already. And they've been investigating on their own. It's them that have done all the hard work. Not Phil McConnell. Not Timothy Holmseth. Not Kurt Pendergrass. Or any of these other people. And so, on that particular subject, that's where we're at. So all you people out there that think I'm blowing smoke, that think I'm full of shit, that I'm just making this stuff up out of thin air, better start Googling. And once again, as a reminder, what you're looking for is the National Cyber Active, let me start this again, I screwed it up. National Cyber Investigative Task Force. You'll see the symbol that is above this narrative, and you can go through and you can start reading about what these people do. And you can decide for yourself if I'm full of it or not. But in the coming days, weeks, and months, you're going to find out for certain. These things take time. You just don't call up, file a complaint with these agencies, and tomorrow somebody gets arrested. It takes time. They build foundation of evidence of it. They coordinate. They make sure that they do a thorough investigation so that when the handcuffs comes out, and they arrest somebody, that it's going to be worth their while. So it's going to take time. And every time you mention that you're a spokesman for the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, or you're a DJ for a YouTube channel, or you're on the board of the Pedophile Task Force or the Children's Crusade, that qualifies as a count. That qualifies as one time that you've done something against the law. And I'll cite as an example Timothy Charles Holmseth. Timothy Charles Holmseth was charged with 4 counts of violating the court order that was placed against him. 4. He pled guilty and served time for 1. Bear that fact in mind. He's already served 1. He has 3 more on the books. He's supposed to be going on trial for number 2 when he skipped town. So that means that when he's picked up and put back in jail and goes before the judge, it's going to be the second of 4. That's 3 times that he will have to appear in court to face those charges. And by the time he gets to the 4th count, he will be what is known as a habitual offender. That means he's done these things over and over and over again. Now, there's a distinct possibility and likelihood that there are going to be more charges filed against Timothy Holmseth because he keeps violating the law. He keeps violating the court order. And records of this are in place. And there's a distinct possibility, and more likely than not, that he will be facing a minimum of 5 extra charges, which means he will have to appear in court 8 times to address these charges. That's Timothy Charles Holmseth's future. That's a future that he's not going to get the President of the United States to help him out of this mess. He's not going to get the governor of any state to help him out. Sooner or later, Tim Holmseth is going to screw up, and he's going to wind up in jail. And it's probably going to be at the hands of... Let me get my piece of paper out here. The National Cyber Investigative Task Force. That's a task force that you want to remember. Not the Pedophile Task Force, but the Investigative Task Force. You're going to find out what a really real task force is. You're going to find out that it's not Timothy Charles Holmseth, it's not Bill McConnell, it's not Kurt Pendergrass, it's not this moron from out in Oregon who is the postmaster of the world, or whatever the hell he calls himself. It's not Robert David Steele. It's none of these people. It's a subtle, quiet agency of the United States government that is going to start kicking ass. And you don't want to be the one that's going to be subject to getting your ass kicked, because they kick hard and they kick far. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to people finding out what it's like to live in the real world instead of in the fantasy world of the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. Now, on a note, I will be making more or less an announcement tomorrow, December 31st, 2019, of what my plans are in the next year. And I will seek feedback when I make these announcements as to how you people feel about it. But whatever happens in the next few days and in the next year, I wish you all well. I wish you a happy new year. And I hope that 2020 turns out to be a productive year, a year when we can put a lot of problems to rest and maybe address some new ones. But with your help, we're going to make it an interesting year, an insightful year. So, stay tuned. And until then, this is William K. Murtaugh, Mark Witness 1, wishing you a happy new year, and have a good one.